Library assets are one of the best ways to save time when working with Camtasia. It basically means that you can create videos, work with images, callouts, and save them into your library and then use them repetitively in every single other video that you create. It's a really great way of not having to keep doing the same thing again and again and again. I'm going to show you how to create libraries. I'm going to show you how to access the libraries that are freely available in Camtasia. And then I'm going to show you how to transfer assets into your libraries, all in this video. My name's Russell Stannard and I'm a recommended Camtasia trainer. Let's get started. Okay, you can see a video on the screen that I've just made using Camtasia 2024. And what I'm going to point out is several ways that I use libraries to massively save me time. Now, if we go over to our libraries, we've really got essentially two types of libraries. That is the library that comes with Camtasia, that comes with lots of assets that we can use in any of our videos, but also, as you'll see here, I've got lots and lots of my own libraries, and I want to start there because I want you to realize that, for example, if I went to Russell's library, I've got a number of videos and images in Russell's library that I use again and again and again. And let me show you an example. So at the beginning of every video that I make, I always have an advert for Camtasia, as you've already seen. And I'm just going to drag that from my library straight in and then place that into its position just after the introduction, before the content starts. So by simply saving content into my library, I can use it time and time and time again. Now let me show you how I make a library and then show you how we bring content into a library. And Camtasia is really clever when it comes to doing this. So let's create a new library. You're going to move over here, click on the left, this one here. Click on the drop down menu, go to create new library, and I'm going to call this one Russell Training Library. And then what I'm going to do is show you different ways that you can bring content into that training library. Now, one of the most obvious ways of doing that is simply to import media straight into the library. And you can see here we've got the library open. If we click on import media, and just to do a very quick example, I'm going to jump over to my pictures. I'm going to go to my motion backgrounds and I'm going to grab a video and click on open. And you'll notice now that that video is in my library and that will stay there forever. And that means that if I make a new video next week or next month or whenever, anything that's in my library will be available and I can just drag it onto the timeline and use it. So one way of bringing content into a library is to simply import it from the content that you've got on your computer. Now, another incredible way of adding content into a library is literally just to select a few things on the timeline. Let's say, for example, I really wanted this section here. I wanted to save this as a reusable piece of content that I'm going to use again and again. So I select it on the timeline, I right click and click on add to library. It's going to say, well, which library do you want to add it to? I'm going to add it to the Russell Training Library. Choose canvas size, presumably you've got your correct canvas size set anyway, and just click on OK. And now that object, whatever that is, whatever you've selected on your timeline, has become a library element. Now, interestingly, you can also do this with a selection, not only with, say, you selecting whole pieces of video, but you could actually take a section of a video and save that as a library element. So just zooming in a little bit closer so you can see this really clearly. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to select this area here. Okay, so just this part of the video, I'm now going to right click and I'm now going to save that. Notice, add timeline selection to library. So you can actually do that. Again, it's going to open it up. You're needing obviously to give it a title and then choose where you want to save that. So I'm going to save that, for example, in Russell's library, and I'm going to call this Camtasia section. Okay. And then save that. OK, and that now again will become a usable or reusable element that you can use time and time again, that you will always find in your library in that particular place. Now this is very much an advanced feature and one that's going to be very useful for anyone working in teams. Often you will want to share your library with other people that are working in your team so they've got access to the same assets. Now, making sure you're in the library that you want to share. So let's imagine, for example, that I want to share Russell's library. What I'm going to do is just click in here, but I'm in Russell's library. I'm going to come down to Manage Library and notice it says Import zipped library and also export library. So let's imagine that you wanted to export this library. But what you would do is click on this button here and then obviously choose wherever you want to save it on your computer. So I'm going to call this Russell's exported library. Okay. And then I'm going to simply export that. Now that means then that I could then share that with other members of my group and they could import it. So I'm going to show you now that we've exported that set of images and videos, etc. Everything in Russell's library will be now packaged in the zip file, and I'll be able to now share that with other teachers or other people who are working on the project. Now let's look at it then from the person point of view now of importing that library in so that we can work with it. So the easiest way to import a library in is to come down to File, or come up to File, sorry, click here on File and come to Library, and then if you notice you've got Import Library Media to File, Export Asset, but you've got Import Zipped Library. So I'm going to click on that and we're obviously going to come to our desktop and hopefully we're going to find that here. There it is, and then I'm going to click on Open. Now that should actually create a new library. So we could then add to new library, or we could actually add that to a previous library. So what we can do is not only import those library assets, but actually save them in a specific file if we wanted to do that. Okay. Now what I'm actually going to do is add create new library. So if I click on this import, what it will do is it will actually use the name that's been given to that zipped file. So in other words, that new library file we've generated will take the name of the zipped file, in other words, Russell's exported library. So my problem now, of course, is that I've got that library twice now because I've got it called Russell's library and I've now got it called Russell's exported library. But one really good thing is that opening up that, I can come down to Manage Library and I can delete that library. So I'm going to delete that library because I've imported it and I really don't need it. So I'm just going to delete that whole library and it will be deleted. But at least you understand how you can import all the library assets or any exported library assets into your program or into a project that you're working on. Save them either as a library, as a new library and give it a name, or what you can also do is just import all those elements into a library that you've already generated. Just a super quick break from the video. If you like what you see and you want more free videos, then come over to teachertrainingvideos.com. I do have a huge section of Camtasia videos that you can access. They're all free. And also, if you do want to contact me, then you can actually contact me from the website. I do run one-to-one and group-based training, and I am a recommended Camtasia trainer. If ever you want to delete a library, just go to the library that you want to delete. Then if you just click here, once you've got that library open and come down to Manage Library, you'll see that you've got the option to delete the library and you can delete that. Now, what I want to focus on next is the Camtasia library assets. So we're going to come over to the library. Remember, we've got our own Camtasia library as well as loads of other library assets, and I'm going to click on it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down to, let's start with something. Let's go for some of these dynamic backgrounds. Okay, and let's just drag one onto the screen. Let me see if I can find one that I kind of like using a lot. So for example, yeah, this one's good fun. So let's put this sunburst onto the screen. Now, I don't know if you realize that for any of these assets, there's a couple of really fun things that you can do. First of all, With that selected, click here on the properties and notice that you can change the properties. So for example, let's just say I want to update that. I'm going to click here and choose a yellow color, then I'll sort of whatever color I want, I can just switch around and choose completely different colors and update that straight away. Just going to click off there. Now the other thing is as well, look, you've got the count. So for example, I could make this more complex if I wanted by adding in a level of complexity and the radius, etc. So you've got a number of properties that you can play around with. Now another thing that often when I do the training people don't realize, let's just say that we take this video to this point here and then we cut it at that point. We could have one set of settings here and then suddenly, and we're going to click back on the properties because this is now a completely separate video. So if I click on the properties here, okay, of that, make sure you actually click on it. So you've selected that object, you've clicked on the properties. I'm going to come down here and for this one I'm going to say, right, I want it to be this color here. And notice now what I've got is, first of all, one color and then bang, swaps into another color. So lots that you can do with the library assets that are provided by Camtasia 2024. I'm just going to take that a little bit further. So let's work with the library assets again in Camtasia, and we're going to come down now to what's called titles. And so within titles, we've got quite a number of assets that we can work with. Now, just trying to show you this because these are slightly different. If I drag this onto the screen, what you'll notice is that this actually is what we call a grouped element. So we can just go to the properties here on the right hand side and make the basic changes, but we can also, if we want to, get under the engine and really by clicking here and opening up the group, we can start to see what this actually is made of, how this whole animation has been created. Okay, so let's try and take an example. I'm just going to click here and open up the titles. Let me just bring this up onto the screen. I'm going to just try to show you an example of what I mean. We've got the reflection here on both sides. Let's imagine that we don't want the reflection at the bottom. What we could do in theory is click on that and delete it. Okay, and now what you'd have is that animation, and you'd have to close it down, okay, and bring it back. And now if we play that animation, it's only going to be reflecting one way. So what I'm saying is some of the assets, some of the Camtasia 2024 assets are what we call grouped elements. And if you really want to get in under the bonnet and make changes, that is what you would need to do. Generally, I don't do that. There's been occasion when I've done it because I've wanted to kind of change the way an animation looks or works. But generally what I do is just concentrate really on clicking on the asset and changing the properties. The properties normally are enough for me. Okay, really hope you liked that video, and in that video you saw an effect where I am kind of moving around on my screen as I'm doing now on the webcam. And if you want to learn how I do that, I'm going to put the video on the screen now that will show you that animation technique. Remember, if you want more free videos, then please come over to teachertrainingvideos.com. Look at the section on screencast videos and there's loads of videos there. They're all free. I am a recommended Camtasia trainer, and if you do want to do some training with me, you can connect with me from my website, teachertrainingvideos.com. You might even find the website interesting to look at, as all of the videos on that website were created using Camtasia. I do training on a one-to-one basis or with groups of students as well. I'm going to leave now on the screen a few more videos around Camtasia that you might find interesting, and thank you very much.